Richard Gwyn, our guest, he is a journalist, a political columnist, an author. 7 books so far,
Yeah,
Joey
yeah.
Smallwood, Trudeau,
Yeah.
2 McDonald's.
2 McDonald's, that's 4. I can go to all the others, but just
Right.
I'm only plugging
I
McDonald's.
understand, and you do have to plug books these
Yes,
days.
oh,
Yes, you do. Tell me about his daughter, Mary. She was born with...
Soon after Confederation, I mean, he marries a second time.
Right.
And it's a marriage of convenience on his side because he needs a chatelaine because he's going to become prime minister. She, Lady MacDonald, fell madly in love with him because he was a very, very attractive guy. She becomes pregnant. They have a child, a young daughter. And after a few months, they realize something's terribly wrong, and she's then diagnosed as hydrocephalic. What was water on the brain was the term then used. And all her life, this poor young girl who went on to become a woman, and in her 60s, amazing she lasted that long, could not feed herself, could not clothe herself. She couldn't even turn herself over at night. And what was so beautiful about MacDonald and Lady MacDonald is they never once discussed putting her in an institution. Would have been some kind of convent, you know, or something of that
Yes.
nature. And the temptation to do that is, we're all human beings, you know, one could say, well, she'd get better care there. They looked after her, it was very expensive. They treated her as a member of the family, and they gave her the fullest life that they possibly could. And it really was beautiful. And you know what was so marvelous? They never told anybody. Now, obviously, word got around Ottawa in the way it does in the capital. But there would be people from the countryside, conservative supporters, who come to Ottawa and go to see their leader. And those days, it was all much more relaxed and so on. They'd go to, and they'd come in, this couple would come into the living room of MacDonald House where he was renting them. And they would see the Prime Minister of Canada rubbing the pencil-thin legs of this little girl in the desperate hope that this would cause her blood to circulate and so on. I mean, that's the way they were. You just had to accept she was a part of the family, and if she wanted to talk, or she had difficulty talking, he would listen to her and would say nothing to you.
So Sir John A., a man of big heart, what were his flaws?
Oh, he had lots of flaws. He had a terrible temper, for instance. Once he got into a fight, he was going to win it, you know. And he could be mean in the sense that his great opponent was George Brown, the Liberal leader. And George Brown played a very important part in Confederation and basically made the sacrifice of accepting MacDonald as de facto leader of the grand coalition that brought around Confederation. It was a big, big concession, because he hated MacDonald. And MacDonald, after Confederation, would never admit that Brown had played a critical role in Confederation. And that was mean-spirited.
Yes,
So
not as generous as it could have been.
No, he should have, and you know, it was stupid, but he was that kind of guy. We're not all perfect.
Not all perfect, but when it came down to Louis Riel, the Northwest Rebellion, his role in that.
Well, of course, he allowed the execution of Riel to go ahead. And that is the biggest mistake he made, and it's had a major effect upon his reputation. And this is the Riel-MacDonald encounter is the great tragedy of Canadian history. We're not a country that's used to tragedy. We've never been invaded, you know, except, you know, in 1812, you guys.
Yes,
half
I know.
of you tried to conquer us. And
Once
so on.
again, us.
Yes, well, it's only half of you. But at any rate, you know, we haven't had rebellions and all that kind of thing. But Riel is the great tragic figure of our history. The irony is that so is MacDonald. MacDonald and Riel fought, both trying to do the same thing, save a poor, small nation. The Métis were tiny, of course, and Canada was, let's say, 4 million. But compared to the States, it was just, you know, Americans could have conquered it in a week. And it was in real trouble many, many times. And MacDonald feared that what Riel was doing was going to lose the West. And if we lost the West, Canada was gone. Either we stretched from sea to sea, or we weren't going to be.
And the decision rested with Sir John A. Macdonald, what to do about Riel, yes?
And yeah, oh, absolutely. But here's the irony, here's the tragedy. What we all wish he had done, and what MacDonald's ghost undoubtedly wishes he had done, was to find a way to say, he is insane, he should not be hung. But if he had done that, no one would have opposed that decision more than Louis Riel. That is the irony of it, because Louis Riel was an intelligent man, knew perfectly well that if he was sent to an asylum, which he had been in before in Quebec, then everything he had argued for was the mouthing of a lunatic. And it became, senseless. It's so that Riel, in his trial, did everything he could to convince the jury that he was sane, knowing that the result of that would be his execution. It is not easy. It is not a simple MacDonald bad, Riel good, white hat, black hat. And
never is.
It never is when in real life. But I think there is an urge by a number of people to blame it all on MacDonald because we all have this guilt about our handling of Native people. So dump it on someone who's long dead. And that's not good enough. It's not that I'm trying to excuse MacDonald. He made a terrible mistake and he paid a high price for it.
Yes, he did. If Sir John A. came back today
He would.
And viewed this nation, what would he think?
He'd be pretty damn pleased. I mean, what he wanted happened. He wanted Canada to become a real country. We're a very odd kind of real country by conventional standards, because this typical nation state, as you know well, is a people of a similar culture, ethnicity, language, and so on. We are very unusual around in the world.
Bank's pretty good.
Yeah, well, banks are in great shape. But the most important thing to him undoubtedly would be Canadians are no longer scared of the United States. We recognize that they're immensely powerful and all that, that's obvious. But we don't feel inferior to them, which most of our history we have. We worried either that they might take us over or we would sell out. But nobody thinks about that anymore. And that's not hostile, it's not anti-American, it's simply recognition that we've grown up. We are now a mature nation. And what MacDonald's phrase was when he was around, a beautiful phrase. He said, it is necessary for Canada to harden from gristle to bone. Well, sometime in the last 3 decades, we became bone. We are a real nation. We've got our flaws, and we're a bit lucky today because we can flog resources and so on. We're back to selling wood and drawing water.
Right.
Except we're drawing oil instead of water, hewing wood and drawing water. But we are a success. And multiculturalism, the truth is the whole world is going to go multiculturalism. Of course, this is a global world. And we are doing better than anybody else. There are strains and there are problems. It ain't easy. If you can't have different backgrounds, cultural and all that stuff. But we're doing it. So he would say, I did good.
And at this point, we're doing it under a Tory.
Well, yes.
How would he feel about that? It's such an odd question to ask you because who knows, what John A. would think.
I mean, they're totally different kinds of conservatives. John A. was a conservative, and he was very skeptical about progress. And in Victorian times, most people believed in progress, but he didn't. He thought that human nature never changed, that human beings behave exactly the same as we did, several centuries ago, except, of course, we don't kill people in public and hang, draw, and quarter them. But in our basic instincts and behavior the same. So he was a conservative, but he wasn't in any way ideological. He was pragmatic. Whatever works, whatever will... I mean, he damn near bankrupted this country with that CPR, with that Transcontinental Railway. But he said, either there's a CPR, that is a Transcontinental Railway, or there'll be no Canada. Therefore, there will be a railway. And you risk bankruptcy, and it didn't happen, of course, but he was prepared to take that risk.
And when he was in Ulster in Parliament, I can't remember his last words, but when he was in Ulster, he admitted it, and when he died, open casket. That doesn't happen anymore. Train across the country, how did it work?
Well, I mean, people loved him. I mean, the ordinary people loved him. Interesting thing about MacDonald, he wasn't a Democrat. He didn't believe in the universal franchise. It was only for men then, of course. But
he tried to get women to vote. We forgot that part.
No. It's amazing. People don't understand that he did extraordinary things. One of them was he was the first leader in the world to try to extend the vote to women. He did that in 1885, a third of a century before it happened, which was in just after the First World War. He could do new things. He wasn't a conservative, but he was a conservative. Natural instinct was a conservative. But anyway, he would be, going back to your question, how would he feel? He'd feel pretty damn good. Thanks very much.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Richard Gwyn, Nation Maker, a must-read for every Canadian. His Life, Our Times, Volume 2.